Good morning, my dear children. Today we are going to study History Chapter 4 What Books and Burials Tell Us. In this chapter, we will discuss the following topics about one of the oldest books in the world, Sanskrit and other languages, lives of various people, story of megaliths, a closer look of Inamgon and in and about Chinese civilization. One of the oldest books in the world. Vedas are considered as one of the oldest books. There are four Vedas. They are Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharva Veda. Rigveda is considered as the one of the oldest Vedas and it was written nearly about 3500 years ago. It has more than 1000 hymns, which is also known as suktas, which has been written in praise of various gods and goddesses. There were three main gods who were worshipped in Rigvedic period. They were Agni, the god of fire, Indra, a warrior god, and Soma, it is a plant from which special drink was prepared. More about Rigveda. These hymns were composed by sages or rishis. Vedas were written in Vedic Sanskrit and Old Sanskrit and were passed from generation to generation by word of mouth. Priests taught students to recite and memorize the hymns. Most of the hymns were composed, taught, and learnt by men, while only some hymns were composed by women. These were written several centuries later and printed less than 200 years ago. Sanskrit and the other languages. Languages have four main different families. That is, the Indo-European, Tibeto-Burman family, Dravidian family, and Austro-Asiatic family. Indo-European family. Sanskrit is a part of language known as Indo-European. In Indian languages, Sanskrit, Assamese, Hindi, Gujarati, Kashmiri, and Sindhi are included under this. Whereas there are also some European languages such as English, French, German, Greek, Italian, and Spanish. Now, cattle, horses, and chariots. Many prayers in Rigveda for cattle, children, especially boys, and horses. Horses were yoked to chariots that were used in battles. Now, battles were mainly fought to capture cattle, land, water, and people. Most men took part in these wars. While there was no regular army and there were assemblies where people met and discussed matters. They chose their leaders who were brave and skillful warriors. Now, how the wealth is distributed. So, wealth was distributed by the following ways. Major part was kept by the leader. A part was given to the priest. Some of the wealth was kept for yajnas or offerings that were made to God, that is grain, ghee, milk, and sometimes animals was also sacrificed. The rest of the wealth was distributed among the people. Social life. The senior most male member of the family used to take all decisions, while women held great respect in the family. Now, society was divided in the following categories. Priest, they performed various rituals in the society. Raja, they were the leader of the warriors. Jana or Vaishya, it refers to the common people, whereas Aryans were the people who composed hymns, and opponents of Aryas were the Dasas or the Dasyus. They were the men and women captured in war. Now, who were Aryans? Aryans were semi nomadic people who lived in Central Asia. One group moved towards eastward. They reached at the Indian subcontinent. They entered India in stages. Gradually, they moved ahead and settled down in the Ganga Valley. Next, silent sentinels, that is, the story of megaliths. Now, children, as we have read in earlier chapter about megaliths. So, mega, it means big or huge. And let's make stone. So, megalith refers to big stones or big stone builders. They were used to mark burial site. It mainly found in northeast Kashmir, Deccan area and South India. They were practiced about 3000 years ago. Some burials can be seen on the surface of the earth while some were found under the ground. Common features of the burials. Megaliths were used to mark the burial sites. The dead were buried with distinctive pots that were black and red ware. Tools and weapons of iron have been found in the burials. There were skeletons of horses and horse equipments. Ornaments of stone and gold have also been found. Finding out about social differences. In Brahmagiri, a skeleton was buried with 33 gold beds, 2 stone beds, 4 copper bangles, and 1 conch shell. Other skeletons have only a few pots. These findings, such as there was some difference in status amongst the people who were buried. Were some burial spots meant for certain families? Sometimes megaliths contain more than one skeleton. These indicate that people, perhaps belonging to the same family, were buried in the same place, though not at the same time. The bodies of those who died later were brought into the grave through the potholes. A special burial at Enamgarh. In Enamgarh, adults were generally buried in the ground, laid out straight with the head towards the north. Sometimes burials were within the houses. One man was found buried in a large and four-legged clay jar in the courtyard of a five-roomed house. This architect was considered to be the largest in the Inamgarh. The body was placed in a cross-legged position. Occupations at Inamgarh. Archaeologists have found seeds of wheat, barley, rice, pulses, millets, peas, and sesame, whereas some bones of a number of animals, many bearing cut marks that show they were used as food. It includes cattle, buffalo, goat, sheep, dog, horse, ass, pig, sambar, spotted deer, etc. were also found. There is evidence that fruits such as ber, amla, jamun, dates, and a variety of berries were also collected. What skeletal studies tell us? To figure out gender of a skeleton, bone structure is noticed. The hip or pelvic area of women is larger than men to enable childbearing. Then Charaka, in his book Charaka Samhita, states that human body has 360 bones. He counted teeth, joints, and cartilages also, which are not counted in modern anatomy. According to modern anatomy, humans have around 200 bones. Now, Chinese civilization was thriving at the time. Around 3500 years ago, we find some evidence of writing in China. These writings were on animal bones, which were called oracle bones, as they were used to predict the future for the kings. These kings lived in palaces and amassed vast wealth. Okay, thank you.